All right, so we have a secret word that I've been doing in the last couple episodes, and I do this for our Patreon members. And so there'll be a word, and you won't be able to see it, but it'll appear on the bottom of the screen. And if I can get you to say that secret word during this podcast, then one of our Patreon members will win a prize. So verify for the listening audience, because they won't see it. Verify that you can't see anything on the screen.
I don't see anything.
All right. Okay. So if I can get you to say that word, and sometimes I'll try to throw some hints or whatever. It's just a fun way to see if I am on my game.
Sneaky.
Yeah. So there'll be a secret word. It's not a super tricky word or anything like that. It's not like, Volkswagen or something like that. It'll be a word that you'll probably say. And if you say that, then I'll get to hit the applause button.
Nice.
It's about that time to sit back and enjoy a podcast. The Maker Lounge Podcast, brought to you by Matt Volkman with Volkman Woodworking. Who you got on the show today, Matt?
Thanks, Mike. Since 2014, this guy has been making handmade goods and furniture and is a co-host of a podcast called We Built a Thing. He makes some beautiful pieces showcased on his various social media channels, but it's not just his projects that get him views, it's that good old Southern drawl. His friends call him BruDaddy and sometimes Big Daddy, but his name is Bruce Ulrich, and he stepped into something, the lounge. Welcome to the lounge.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Is
that a fat joke?
Tall.
Oh, okay.
You're tall.
We're good.
Yeah. BruDaddy, Big Daddy. Any other names we should know about?
No, I think that's it. The BruDaddy I've had for a long time. I think I was in junior high or high school. Like a youth pastor I had, he just started calling me that, like, "What's up, BruDaddy?" And it just kind of stuck. So I just stuck with it.
Yeah. So when you started your page, you put BruDaddy. Were you doing any like projects at the time, or was it just your personal?
No, it was just personal. I decided to, after years of having that and just posting whatever, because I was really into photography and stuff years ago. That's how a lot of people on Instagram got into it.
Right.
I just decided I didn't want to start over, so I basically just transitioned it and stopped posting all the personal stuff to that one and just kept the same page and made it the woodworking page.
Yeah. Gotcha. Did you go back through and delete all the other stuff? And
I actually haven't. No, because I've got over 5,000 posts. So if you want to take the time, you can scroll all the way back and see a bunch of flower pictures and, probably some kids and different things. But at a certain point, it was pretty noticeable.
Yeah. When I'm prepping for a podcast, sometimes I'll go back and try to find that first, post or whatever. But I've known you for some time, and known you meaning we've been following each other for some time.
Right.
But I wasn't about to scroll 5,000 posts.
Yeah, it's a lot. And I don't think I've been to an event, in person live where you've been there. So maybe one day we'll get to do that and catch up in person. Yeah,
we've been missing each other. I did Workbench Con the last couple of years, and then AWFS, and not too much. I mean, just the local things, Texas Woodworking Show and things like that.
I went to IWF last fall.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah, in August.
That was Vegas?
No, that was down in Atlanta, so they alternate every other year. But I am going to the AWFS show in Vegas coming up. Well, I guess it's in about 3 weeks.
Yeah, I'm going to miss that one. I will be in the Austin one.
Okay.
So there's the Texas Woodworking Show in Austin in August, so I'll be there for that. Yeah. So you got kids just keeping you busy?
I do. Yep. I've got 3 kids. My oldest just turned 13. I've got an 11-year-old and a 7-year-old.
Okay. Yeah, our kids are about the same age.
Yeah, it's a different stage, and we were talking before we hit record that, summertime brings later bedtimes, and it's a totally different dynamic.
Right. I think I heard in one of your other posts that you did, your wife as a teacher.
She is, yeah.
Is that right?
She's taught elementary for 19 years, and just in the last 2 years has, actually last year was her first year in middle school, so she'll be teaching middle school again this coming fall, and so far she's liking it.
That's good. Yeah, you can banter a lot more with the middle school kids.
You can, but they're sassy.
Yeah.
The bad ones are really bad.
Yeah. Is the district a good district, or is it?
It is. It's good. This
Yeah.
school, this particular school in the district has some troubled kids, but she has real good support from the leadership and stuff. So this past year was, even with dealing with difficult problem children, she had the support she needed.
Yeah, that teacher life is no joke. I mean, my wife comes home and she's just she's wiped out. And,
Oh yeah.
You know, people make the comments about, well, oh, must be nice to have the whole summer off, but you know that without that, there's no way that it would be sustainable, that job.
No, I don't think they would get enough break to even want to go back.
Right. Yeah.
It takes a little time to psych yourself back up.
Exactly. Our district just now we have a February and an October break during the year, so they do get a like mid school year breaks kind of thing.
We do
which
have
is
a fall
nice.
break in October, but we don't have a February break.
It's exhausting just seeing what she has to go through.
Mm-hmm.
So what about you? We were talking pre-show. What's kind of the origin story of how you got into all this? And
Yeah, I spent a long time in banking. I had about 15 years of working jobs in banking, the last of which was about 2019. I was in bank marketing for many of those years, so it's pretty boring. You know, marketing can be fun, but bank marketing is pretty boring. It's like writing copy for how to get a debit card or something, you know?
oh boy.
writing website copy and that kind of stuff. But I left that in, so that's kind of how I started making things and doing stuff. Growing up, my dad was always real handy with stuff, and I helped him with different things. He has a house built in the 1950s, and it had a 2-car carport. And when I was in high school, just on nights and weekends, we converted that 2-car carport to a fully built out, basically like mother-in-law suite, like huge room with an ensuite, double vanity and walk-in closet and bath. And it was challenging because the time his house was built, 2x4s were actually 2-inch by 4-inch, but we were having to use modern materials to match up to that. And it was difficult trying to get the joists to match up and all of that. But I learned a lot through that because we did everything from pouring some concrete because it had a little footer wall to doing a little bit of masonry, you know, woodworking, framing, that kind of stuff. He was never real heavy into the woodworking side, so that's kind of something I picked up years later. And it was while I was in banking. I was just wanting something to do. I wanted to make some stuff around the house and kind of started a side hustle, you know, doing that, making some stuff for people, making cutting boards and that kind of thing. As far as getting on YouTube, it was probably like 2015. I was watching a bunch of people like Jay Bates and Jimmy DeResta, you know, Bob Claggett, David Picciuto. A lot of those folks were really posting heavy at that time. And in 2016, I actually started filming myself. I was already posting some to Instagram, you know, not a ton, especially by today's standards, how people post content. But for whatever reason, I never edited the first video and put it out until 2017. I had been shooting for almost a year of different projects.
Oh, wow.
And it just took that long to kind of, I don't know, to put it together and put it out there for whatever reason. So, yeah, my channel is about 5 years old, but those first few months, I would say it harmed my channel by not having enough content. Because if people, my first video actually did quite well by standards of not a large channel, and they didn't have something else to watch. So that was poor planning on my part. I should have released a few at a time and been faster. But again, you know, it was a side hustle. I had another full career, had a family, and that's just how it shook down.
So now you're doing this full time, made the leap, and never looked back at the banking business.
No, I'm glad to be gone from that. That corporate life was sucking the life out of me. I kind of transitioned for a little while back in 2019 into being a realtor for a couple of years. I always just kind of wanted the realtor thing to be part-time and grow the woodworking side. But what I found, at least in the area where I was, is I was spending 50, 60 hours a week doing realtor stuff part-time, you know, quote unquote. and it, you know, that's full-time time, and I just wasn't making full-time money at it. And it was sucking all of the extra time out of growing the woodworking business that I wanted to do.
Yeah. You ever get interested in flipping houses or anything like that?
Yeah. The capital outlay, you know, up front is always a a barrier to that for me. I'm pretty debt averse, so
Yeah.
it's not something I leap into very, very quickly. I don't really love jumping into partnerships, and I don't like getting a loan for stuff. So that kind of eliminates that. Now, eventually, sure, I'd like to own some investment properties outright, and I'll probably do some of the upgrades and stuff on it. But that's a little ways down the road still.
Yeah, it's what's funny is I know a couple other bankers, and they are also risk averse, and so with your background in that, and they don't take out loans and stuff like that. But then the consumerism culture, people who aren't in that, they're doing all of that.
Right. Yeah. I don't know if it's just because you see it. I mean, I was not a lender, but I obviously saw a lot of it and wrote copy for all those people. And you just see why all the banks have the nice buildings and the nice furniture. I mean, there's a reason you're paying all your money to these people. Yeah.
My parents were, my mom specifically was in and out of the hospital quite a bit last year. And I got to know the people at the front. So it's like the bank, right? You get to know the people at the front of the hospital pretty well when you're going in and out. Yep. And they're like, "Oh, here you are. You're back." And I was like, "Yeah, you see that chandelier over there? We paid for that. You see those tiles? We paid for that."
Yep.
Same thing with a bank,
But yeah, you mentioned doing this full time. I can't really say that I do woodworking full time. It's all woodworking adjacent. It's kind of around that, but I do like a million little things that kind of make up an income. I have a podcast, and we can talk about that a little more later, but I sell local items that I make. I do laser engraving. I have a CNC machine that I do some of that, contracting out. I have made furniture items for people for sale. I sometimes just work for another local shop here that's my buddy, but I'll just go work with him because I already have the skill, and he can just hire me on kind of an as-needed basis, and they build big, cool stuff, so sometimes it's just kind of fun. Just many little things like that. Website sales, I sell some stuff online on Etsy, so that makes up some of it. So it's all these just like death by 1,000 cuts that kind of adds together.
It actually sounds fun, because like you're not building widgets out of your shop where you're just doing the same thing over and over.
Right.
It sounds like you have a lot of variety.
It's a blessing and a curse because, I think that also, hey, great, I'm not sitting and doing 500 of one thing and getting tired of it. But some of these things, if you don't put a decent process in place or whatever, it's... you kind of really have to remember, let me change completely my gears and go set up to make 2 of these and ship them out.
Right.
So you really have to, I think with your offerings, you kind of have to not dumb them down, but don't have quite so many options so that you can say, okay, when I do change over to this tool, I can get going. I can make a small batch of these because that's what a lot of us do is small batch stuff. Right. And, when I'm making some cutting boards, if I get an order for 2 or 3 of them, I usually make a couple extra because I have a size and a style that people order from me, and that way I just have some for inventory. It's kind of like when you're making food for a big family, it's not much harder to make a home cooked meal for 5 people than it is for 2 people.
Yeah, I mean, if you're already busting out the sandpaper and getting after the sanding, you might as well just go for it.
Right.
and do a bunch of them. Yeah, there's nothing more frustrating than getting a cutting board order and you don't have one ready to go.
Yeah,
and you're like, oh, now I've got to, make a bunch of cutting boards just right when you're in the middle of another process.
Correct. That's how it always ends up. And some of that slowed down for me here in the last year. The mortgage industry is kind of weird right now with rates going up like it is. I have in the past had a lot of realtors that I sell to. I mean, that's been one of the things I've done since probably, 2013 or 14. Basically, as soon as I got a table saw and a joiner, I was doing that.
Yeah, I noticed the same thing. This Christmas was way slower for cutting board charcuterie compared to the year prior. I mean, the year prior made probably over 100 in the between October and December timeframe, and this last year I don't even think I made 20, maybe 15.
And, some people might say that market is totally saturated. I don't think so, because that's still a nice gift that a lot of people like to buy and give to others. Something's up. Obviously, we're all feeling the pinch of an economy that's got some inflation going on, so maybe that's pinching in that one place that you and I are feeling it.
And then also Amazon takeover, right? So people are waiting to buy gifts to the last second, and then they get it shipped in 2 days, where you and I, we take an order, it's going to be 2 to 3 weeks probably.
Yeah, I mean, I can usually do it in a week is what I tell people, and that's kind of, pushing it. If you're starting with raw lumber, you got to really make some progress each day. But
Yeah.
a couple of years ago, back in Mississippi, when we lived there, I was going and trying to get new business. So to do that, I was just eating the cost of some boards. I would make up like a nice cutting board, go ahead and do some research on the top agents that I wanted to kind of solicit. I'd engrave their name into the front of it as if it was one of their clients, and then I would put an example on the back of their information, just telling their information, their realty company, that kind of thing, just to show them an example of what I can do, and then I just hand it to them. I request a in-person meeting, because it's one of those things, like when you set it in their hand, then they're like, oh, okay, I get it now.
Right.
When you call and describe something to somebody, they can't see the beauty of it, they can't feel it. But there was this one lady I did that. She was a high producer. Like, she sold a ton of houses, and I made that for her and took it. And she was like, I've never had anyone make me a gift like this. This is awesome. And this and that. She started talking to me. And then when she placed her first order, she started using me. She wanted something like it reminded me when he said that, she wanted like a 2 or 3 day turnaround. And I told her, I was like, I just can't do that. These are made to order. They're handmade, all from rough hardwoods. And I laser engrave them and finish them, like everything in my shop. And she was like, well, my other guy used to do this and that. And I don't know what the previous product was, but it couldn't have been that great, or it was probably more mass produced if it was done in a 2 day turnaround. Plus, it's just ridiculous. As a realtor, probably at least, with exceptions, you probably know at least 3 weeks out when your closing date is.
Right.
And most
of
of
the final inspection, and then you've got like a month probably before closing.
Yeah. And I mean, most closings still happen. Like, occasionally you have one totally fall through. I've been a realtor. Some deals just go south. But even if your date changes, that's what'll happen, is you'll just like, we're not ready for closing, we'll bump it till next Friday. That kind of thing. And so it was just ridiculous. And I've asked a couple of realtors since then. I was like, was she being ridiculous? They were like, yeah, she could give you at least a week and a half notice, if nothing else.
Right. Yeah. So my realtor, I had talked to her about doing some cutting boards, and I told her, I said, because she was like, she had hit me up a couple times, and she didn't end up using me because she wanted a quick turnaround. Probably it was more like a week or two. But for me, I'm not, I've got other things in the queue. And to stop doing that type of thing, to do a cutting board or two, like you said, I want to do like 5 or 10. So I have some, and I didn't have any ready when she wanted them. But what I told her, I said, hey, if you want to buy 10 boards up front, I'll have them ready for you. They'll be earmarked for you. Like, I won't sell them to anybody else.
Right.
And I'll give you a better discount on it. And she never took me up on it. But, if I ever go full time, that's what I'm going to try to do, is like, get in with the realtors, get in with the interior designers and things like that, to get them to front load the money.
Well, yeah, I'd actually thought of a plan like that, because I had one realtor probably every other month. He was ordering 15 or 20 boards. So he's selling some houses. And he was ordering a bunch from me. It was awesome. It slowed down some, but I was trying to think up a proposal, based on that volume. Would he just prepay or pay in a couple of lumps, like a year's worth? Right. And then once he hits his money worth, basically, whatever you want to say, like $1,500 a month, once he hits 15 boards for that month, if he sells 4 more, it's on me. Like, he's not paying me anything else. And so it's just trying to front load that. I never really came out with a full plan, and realtors can be a little flaky. Like, it's pressing to get them to be pretty consistent and loyal. Yeah. They just see the shiny stuff, or they'll go grab a bottle of wine or whiskey or something, Right. And some realtors are still real funny about it. They want to put their realty name all over the front of whatever the item is that they're giving. And I'm like, guys,
nobody wants that.
I had to educate them years ago when I started this. And that's why I did well in Mississippi where I was, because no one was doing this. I think ours years ago on our first house gave us like a picture frame or something, and it had their realty on the frame. And my wife looked at it and was like, I'm not putting that in my house. And so I started telling them, put your client's name on it, boost their ego. They'll set it out on their counter. They'll leave it sitting there. They'll show all their friends. And you won't even have to engrave your name in the back of it, even though I'll do it for you, because they'll tell everybody about it.
Yeah, my realtor, she has an artist that will take a picture of the house and then paint, like hand paint, it's almost like a watercolor type of thing.
Cool.
Of your house or whatever. And I'm thinking that thing's got to cost the same as a cutting board, at least.
Probably
Because
more.
somebody's driving by, taking pictures, and then taking the time to hand paint something. Could be more. Yeah, you're right. So why isn't she buying my cutting boards? Dang it.
I don't know. Something about your price point, or
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is the price point. It's hard to, you've got your price that you want to put out, but then you look at the saturated market on, you say it's not saturated, but it kind of is on Etsy, I feel,
Right.
like the cutting board part. But just the difference in price, I'm like, I can't compete with this price.
Right.
Now, these people probably are cranking out thousands of boards a month.
Yeah, and they may not be valuing their time.
True.
A lot of people do that. They're like, well, this is my side hustle. It doesn't matter how long it takes. Well, your time's worth something, because whether you put a dollar amount on that time, you can literally not be doing something else with that same time.
Right.
You're sacrificing that. So, yeah, I tried over the years to bump it up to nicer boards, or, do like $125. And it got to where I almost always settled around $100 for something about a 12 by 18 board. It's pretty nice.
Mm-hmm.
But I do edge grain because there's no way that price point justifies an in-grain board at all.
No, not at all.
And so, if that's all they're willing to pay, then I just have to find ways to be more profitable. I have to be faster. I have to have cheaper materials, cheaper to me. They don't have to feel cheaper, but I have to get that expense down. And like we were saying, like glue up 3 at a time, because that does your time a little bit better. So those are the kinds of things I've done over the years.
I was walking through Ace today, and our Ace does like this little. They have like items made from people locally and stuff like that, and they had cutting boards there. And so I just picked one up, and this cutting board was probably like, I'd say it was probably like 16 by 24, and it was pretty
big.
stout.
Yeah.
It was edge grain. It was $250.
Decently reasonable, I think.
Yeah, but I'm like, in with no personalization,
Right,
and so that's the difference.
See, mine includes laser engraving.
Right. Yeah. So that's how you and I stand out, I think, is by allowing that personalization. And then you've diversified, and you do templates and stuff too for like charcuterie. You do like acrylic templates and stuff.
Yeah, I found a need. I was making a video for that. Gosh, it was a couple years ago now. Just making a video for my channel, like just showing, hey, here's how to make a charcuterie board, and if you don't have a CNC, you could do this. And I cut a couple of those templates and just used a router, stuck them to the thing, used a router. 2.5 years ago, that was not very commonplace. Like, there were some people doing it, but it was kind of like, oh, and that has brought a lot of traffic. It's just people finding that video and seeing that. So that's been pretty good. I don't know if that market's totally saturated or what, but I don't know. I get a lot of people mentioning that and coming over from that video.
Well, I think, people, like you mentioned, if they don't have a CNC or whatever, and they just want to make, 5 or 10 gifts for their friends, that's a perfect way to go.
Yeah, even if
they
they're not
have a
selling
router.
them. Even if they're just gifts, they might just do it for Christmas.
Yeah, because you don't need to invest in a $2,000 CNC or a $10,000 CNC just to make some gifts for friends.
Right. Yeah, and I started out, I was like one of the early backers of the Glowforge before they went public, and waited a long time. I can't remember the day. I want to say it was like 530 days I waited.
Oh, wow.
So it was like a year and a half. Finally got the thing, and that's what I was doing everything on at first.
Yeah.
And that did kind of set me apart. But I tell a lot of people, I was engraving boards before I even had a laser. I just found a trophy shop in town and worked out a deal with them and contracted it out.
Oh, that's smart.
I just told them, hey, here's the basic imprint of what I'll do. Here are the options I offer. I'll come up with they wanted a PDF format. I'll come up with the PDF to just hand to you. I'll email it to you. I'll bring the board by. Can we do this for 12? They wanted to charge me 15. And I was like, can we do it for 12 if I bring you this amount of business? And they were like, yeah, we'll do that.
That's great. That's
a
good idea for somebody wanting to see if they want to make that, be in the market for doing stuff like that.
Well, yeah,
Instead of
and
investing.
now there's so many makers. Like, you have a big laser. I have an even bigger laser. I swapped it for a bigger one, but there are a lot of makers local. So if there was a way to find those people, like, I would do engraving for someone else. If they just brought it to me, I'll laser engrave it.
Yeah, that's easy money.
Right. And I mean, it could help them start something like you were saying, whether they would want to continue that or not, or maybe then they get a Glowforge, or they get whatever that first. Now the diode lasers are really good. I mean, back 3-4 years ago, that was unheard of.
I just got so I have the bigger Ohmtech, but then I also just got the X tool, 20 watt, and I'm very surprised with it.
They're impressive.
It just did some stainless steel with it. I'm like, I had no idea. I mean, my first laser was one that I attached to the CNC, and it was a small, like 3 watt diode laser, and it couldn't do crap, and it was super slow and unreliable. But nowadays, a 40 watt diode laser, that's just crazy.
Does the 20 watt actually etch the steel?
Yeah.
It doesn't you don't use a marking spray?
No. On stainless steel, it can do it right on it.
Huh.
But if you want to do other metals and stuff, then you would use the marking spray. But it was slow. It took an hour and a half to do I think it was like 6.5 by, or maybe 7 inches by probably 2 inch. And it took an hour and a half. So it took a long time.
Yeah, but our CO2 lasers won't do that.
Right.
It won't etch metal.
Right. Yeah. And I have the marking spray as well. I don't like to do a lot of like metals or anything like that.
I don't either.
Wood is just super simple. I know my settings. It's,
comes out
I
better.
can go out there and especially on the bigger 130 watt laser, you can just crank it out in 5 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, I ended up buying a 150 watt Laguna last year, just upgrading to that.
It's a beast.
Yeah, got a pretty good deal on it. So I was like, well, I'm making a ton of these templates. And it was that same thing you're talking about. I can cut them, at 1/10 the speed of even what. And the Glowforge wasn't slow, but compared to this thing, it's slow.
And that's a drawback of those diode lasers, is you can only do black acrylic, really. You can't do clear acrylic with the diodes.
Oh, the Spectrum won't do it?
No. I think it's something to do with the lighting, with just it's a blue light versus the CO2 will just burrow right through.
Right. Yeah, I saw, I guess it was Steve from Making It Home. He used a diode to engrave on glass, but the way he did it was he painted on some like just black tempera paint or something like that and engraved, and then you wash off the tempera paint because it's easy, and it actually engraved the glass. Yeah. That kind of surprised me.
Yeah, it surprised me too. And it was, looked clean. His projects. He's one of the Patreon supporters of this podcast.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I like Steve. I've talked to him for a long time.
Yeah, he's a great guy. So yeah, you're diversifying. You've got the cutting boards. You've got the templates. I see some plans on your website. You just, it's like a box.
That's just a sales funnel. Yeah.
Yeah.
I give those away for free, and that's really because one day I was going to start an email list, and I've yet to start it, and I probably have like hundreds of people on there now.
Yeah. Any plans to take that, to the next level and start producing more plans, or?
Maybe. I'm not good at the digital design. I learned SketchUp years ago, did one project with it, set it aside for a little while, and then promptly forgot it. I started to learn Fusion 360, and it just doesn't click well with me. I don't know what it is about my brain.
I'm the same way.
For some reason, the 3D stuff just does not. I'm getting a little better at 2D type stuff, like in Illustrator or something like that. Mm-hmm. But I wish I had put in some time, 5, 6, 7 years ago. I'm sure all of us would say that. Like, oh man, I really wish I learned this CAD a long time ago. Yeah. My wife has actually shown interest recently in learning CAD, learning Fusion. Mm-hmm. And I'm probably just going to pay for her to take Bob Clackett's online class or something. And she may be able to draw stuff for me because it interests her. Like, she teaches math and science, so a lot of that spatial type stuff is very interesting to her anyway. And she's very patient and very good at it. And I think it would be pretty cool if I could come in with an idea and say, here are the dimensions. Because a lot of my projects, I just build them the old school way. I just come up with dimensions and heights, and I just go about building it. Whereas Drew from Fisher Shot that I do the podcast with, he he'll draw it up every time in Fusion 360, and he'll proof concept it right there. Like, yep, that looks like a viable product or whatever, or no, it doesn't. And the benefit is, well, it takes time up front, but the benefit is then if he wants to, he has full renderings and everything for plans that he sells and makes.
Right.
Even if I didn't sell plans, I just think it would be cool if I could come in to Rebecca, my wife, and say, hey, here's the idea. Here's a little shoe bench I want, and I wanted to have this and this and this, and she go to town drawing it. I think that would be neat.
Yeah, and then be able to sell those plans as well.
Yeah. So that's that could be something coming up. I don't know. As entrepreneurs, we all have 100 ideas a minute, and they don't all make it.
Yeah, exactly. So do you have a list of ideas, like project ideas that you want to do?
Yeah, I've got a bunch.
Ideas?
Yeah.
Video ideas, or do you do like your YouTube videos or whatever just as the projects come up, or do you do projects for the YouTube?
It's more like projects for YouTube. And that's why some things get more priority as far as projects around here that need doing, because I'm like, we'll bump that, to another time. This video needs to take precedent. And then you look up and you're like, dang, I just made a year's worth of videos and this didn't get done.
The honey-do list gets longer.
Yeah, it does. That's what happened with, I just completed a few weeks back. My boys have been just sleeping on a mattress on the ground since we moved here almost 2 years ago, which is fine. It has not harmed them. They're still perfectly fine.
Right.
But I've been talking about building them some beds, and even before I went to IWF last year, I bought all the lumber in August, and I had talked to a potential sponsor, which, as you know, can really slow things down with the back and forth, and I want to make sure that I mention them, so I finally just completed it, and I was like, man, I put that off for too long.
Well, let's talk about the podcast a little bit more.
The podcast is We Built a Thing. We've been doing it about 5 years now, so we're in a pretty good stride. And it's a weekly podcast that I do with Drew Fisher from Fisher Shop and Mark Christ from Gunflint Designs. Those two guys, it's pretty diverse because I'm kind of the southern guy, and then they're, one of them's in Minnesota, one of them's in Michigan. So we've got a lot of different experiences in the stuff we make and the things we do, around the house. But
you have a pretty good rhythm on doing that?
Yeah, we record Tuesday mornings at about, I guess it's 10 my time in Eastern, and Drew edits it at some point that day, and just it's sitting in my email. Basically, it's just like, okay, it's there. And Wednesday at some point, it's usually before noon, but usually Wednesday morning I get on there and do everything and post it out, and it goes.
Well, I see you just got some new tools, I think, in the shop.
Yeah.
What did you pick up?
Yeah, so years ago, I guess about 3 or 4 years ago, I wanted a track saw, and
you said it.
Nailed it. It was track saw, huh?
Yeah, congratulations, Nick Poole. You're the lucky Patreon winner. If you want to be one of these winners, head over to patreon.com/MakerLoungePodcast to sign up.
It's a new Milwaukee track saw.
Well, maybe if I had more Patreon sponsors. It'd probably be one of these mugs.
Nice.
It'll be a mug or a t-shirt. So if you're watching on YouTube, basically I'm showing you the mug here. It's got the 2 different logos on it, and there was something in it that I just spilt on myself. That's great.
Oh, nice. That was yesterday's coffee.
Yeah. Yeah. But a mug or a t-shirt or something. Didn't mean to interrupt you, but you said that the secret word, track saw. So thanks for doing that. Thank you, Patreon members, for supporting the podcast.
Yeah, no worries. Years ago when I was looking, it basically came down to a Makita cordless track saw, or Festool didn't even have a cordless one. I was kind of considering both of those, and there was only about $100 difference between the Makita corded one and the cordless one. So I was like, I had a couple outside projects that would have been pretty far away from our house. We lived on about an acre at the last place, and it had a really big backyard, and even with a 100-foot extension cord, it's pretty far out if you're at the back of it. So I thought this would be handy to just have it cordless. I probably wouldn't use it all the time, but cordless batteries and tools have even come a long way in 4 years.
Definitely.
But Makita was kind of the only one that I liked the reviews of at the time, and so I picked it up. But I still didn't have any. I never went that route of buying more Makita tools. I already had some DeWalt just drills from years ago, and I've gotten to where I just have all of these battery platforms. And so I started a few months back really kind of paring down and go, okay, if I'm going to pursue one of these and buy new batteries, because the batteries are almost the same price if you get good ones for any of the brands. So you might as well pursue the brand that you like their offerings the most. And that ended up being Milwaukee for me. So I started, I decided I'm not buying any more DeWalt batteries. I'll just use the small batteries I have until they die, basically. Yeah. And getting rid of the Makita allowed me to get, Milwaukee just came out with the track saw, so I could now get the Milwaukee track saw and use the batteries I already had. Mm-hmm. And I listed it, and then come to find out my brother wanted it, so he bought it.
Well, that's convenient.
I listed it on Marketplace, and he actually commented because I shared it publicly, and he was like, "Oh man, I want this." And I texted him later and was like, were you kidding? Like, do you really, is this something you want? He was like, yeah, because he's Mr. Makita.
Oh, okay.
And he was like, yeah. So it worked out. We just went for a visit back to see my folks and all my siblings and took it with me, and he paid me. So
as long as you don't end up being tech support for him.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes with family trade-offs, you can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you sound like you have had experience with that.
Yeah. My brother's been getting into woodworking lately, and he's in Atlanta. And so when I was up there for Workbench Con, I brought some tools up there. He hasn't asked me for tech support on the stuff that I gave him, but he's been asking me for like woodworking advice and things like that. And I'm like, hey, if we keep this up, we're going to have Voltner Woodworking Atlanta. Like, I'm going to make you an extension of the company.
Yeah. Billable hours.
Yeah. Not a bad idea.
I haven't even made a cut with that thing. I'm looking forward to it, but I just got the blade and everything set up and kind of was just fiddling with it, learning about it.
Yeah. I had invested in Makita, maybe 10 years ago, and just went with that platform before Milwaukee was really starting to make moves.
Yeah.
So
Makita's great. I know a lot of people that have them.
Yeah, I'm not into that camp where it's got to be one or the other kind of thing. But definitely staying on the battery platform. Like if Milwaukee and Makita, there's people who are like, oh, this one's so much better than that one. I find that they're pretty comparable, but I don't own a bunch of Milwaukee stuff.
No, I think so too. I happen to like what kind of made the decision for me is I like Milwaukee's air nailers, like their framing nailer and their 18 gauge brad nailer and crown stapler and all of those. They're the quietest and fastest ones of those brands, in my opinion, and that's kind of what sold me on those. And I don't have any of those yet, but that's like when I need them, I will go that route. I mean, I have a Ryobi Airstrike, and it does a pretty darn good job.
Yeah.
I got it for like $150.
Yeah. Well, if you're doing a bunch of cabinetry and stuff like that, that type of tool is something you'll want to invest in pretty heavily. So I think you made the right move.
Well, and I think we're building a house coming up soon, and I think I'll probably end up getting that 30-degree framing nailer from Milwaukee when I do. I think it'll pay for itself pretty quickly. If you've ever, people are like, oh, it's so heavy. I don't think it's really that much heavier than other guns. And if you've ever used one with the big air hose attached, it's even heavier because all that hose is dragging down on you.
Right.
So all framers are heavy.
Right. Have you seen those arm like support things that they've been showing at these, like, it's so weird, all robotic or whatever?
Yeah.
But I am curious to try it just for fun.
I'm sure if you did something all day, every day like that, you would need, that's bound to help with fatigue.
Right.
Or just overall, not getting tendonitis or something in your arm.
It just looks silly. Like those big masks that people wear when they're spraying or whatever. They're like it's like a space suit, basically.
Yeah, with the hose that comes out back and goes to an air pack.
Yeah. I'm sure it's really good. Like, you're definitely filtering out everything, but it just seems like overkill for spraying some small projects.
Yeah, whatever just happened to holding your breath. I'm just kidding.
Hey, that's one way to bring the trolls out.
Yeah, for sure. Do what you gotta do.
So you've been monetized on YouTube for a while?
I have, yeah. It's not been some boon to me, but I have been. I don't remember when. I think it was probably in that first year or year and a half that I I was able to do that. Like I said, that first video I had did pretty well for me for a small channel at the time. I'm still a small channel. I've got just under 19,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
Which is big. I mean, I don't know 19,000 people.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a sizable channel. And looks like you're getting some good views, even on videos you're just posting recently.
They're doing decent. You know, every person who makes content would always say that they want better views and more watch time, and you know what I mean, no matter what level you're at. Even if you are getting 500,000 views in the first week, you would say I want more.
Right. Are you doing the thumbnail game? Like you have 3 or 4 thumbnails ready to launch?
I struggle with thumbnails because I'm not good at that digital creation, and so even if I have an idea, actually bringing that idea to life in a thumbnail that someone wants to click on, and you know, for people out there that don't make content, they may not really realize this, but you could make a really good video. You know, I feel like my production value is really good. I'm good at editing, but it doesn't matter if no one clicks on it.
That's right.
It's like the video doesn't even exist. And so, I'm struggling with that, but I usually try 2 of them. I'm struggling to come up with 2, let alone 4.
Right.
And I'll swap them out here and there.
Do you ever get like deflated when you see it flatline? You're after your first 48 hours and it just flatlines?
Yeah, for sure, all the time. I mean, you know, again, as entrepreneurs and, you know, creators like this, we have a lot of highs and we're like, oh man, it's doing awesome. And we try to chase that and do the same thing and it flops and you just can't explain it.
Yeah. And I still haven't had a video be resurrected. Like all of these growth channels, they say, oh, just, you know, change your title and thumbnail and all of a sudden you'll start get a surge in views. I'm like, that has never happened to anybody that I've ever talked to.
I've tried it. I've tried swapping out email or thumbnails. I've swapped out titles, even on old videos that I think would do well in search and stuff, and I've never had it happen.
Yeah, I think people are getting frustrated right now with I know it's not clickbait, so I hate using that word, but you have to do something that's intriguing,
right,
to get them to click, and you have to deliver in the first 30 seconds, but you can't give away the farm in the first 30 seconds or they'll drop off and your video tanks. So it's like there's a magic formula that it just is so hard to crack.
Yeah, you've got to have a hook and then somehow keep them for a while for your retention. And as far as the thumbnails and the titles, yeah, you're right. I mean, some of them, I don't even like those really vague titles, but I've even tried using some of them just to see if that's, you know, a thing that works.
Yeah, I've done the whole thing, the researching of trying to do the keyword targeting and stuff like that. That's never worked. I've done some borderline. It's not been clickbaity, but it doesn't deliver in the first 30 seconds. It'll deliver like in the video, and then you get the comment that's like, you know, oh, I'll never watch this channel again. I'm like, okay, well, you didn't even watch, you know, 2 minutes into the video where I delivered on exactly what I told you I was going to deliver on.
Yeah, that's really frustrating.
Yeah, YouTube is definitely a learning experience, and people just don't realize.
And you know, I'm even seeing people say very recently that the keywords don't even matter. Like, I've not seen a difference at all in a matter of views and retention on the last few videos, and I haven't put in a single keyword. And I used to spend all this time, like you were talking about, researching keywords and finding the ones that are trending and this and that and trying to include them. Yeah. They don't even do anything.
Well, it's amazing that they can do a transcript of your video as soon as you upload the video. Right. And I think that whatever you're saying in the video is what they're using to test the audience. Right. So I've even tried to almost keyword stuff in the script, some things that I like buzzwords, and that hadn't worked for me. So I don't know.
You're like dropping a track saw in there somewhere.
Right. Yeah. Hey, listen, I'm only giving away one today. Okay. I'm not a, one of those rich YouTubers.
Right.
So, and then sponsors, you mentioned sponsors. Is that something that you actively search out, or just as people come to you, you You try to build them into a video?
I don't have a big enough channel in demand that anyone coming to me is probably worth a darn. I mean, just to be honest.
Yeah.
They're the, I think people are shooting fireworks. That was crazy loud outside.
Oh, yeah. We're coming into that time.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize they would be doing it tonight. I figured tomorrow for sure.
Well, I was recording with Andy Bird a couple weeks ago, and people were shooting off fireworks. Well, no, it was last week, and people were shooting off fireworks during the after show portion.
Okay.
So it sounded like Hezbollah around here.
Yeah, exactly. No, what I was saying is, anyone reaching out to me is generally just not that great. Unless I happen to want that product and I can easily integrate that in, they're probably not going to pay for the actual video. They'll just send you product. And I'll do that occasionally if it's something I want. But no, I have to seek out the ones that I want. And it's been very sporadic for me. I mean, to be very blunt, I've not been consistent as I want to be with putting out content. And so, it's hard to go and ask and keep a pipeline full. Well, if your pipeline's not full of videos, it's hard to go and ask all these different people because you just don't have that many opportunities.
Yeah, that does put a kink in it. And then also sometimes even when you get a product, then you have now you have a timeline that you gotta stick to. And if that's driving you, then I don't know about you, but I tend to be less creative.
Me too.
When there's a timeline on it. When I don't have a timeline, I can be super creative and come up with a different idea. But I was starting to get a lot of like sponsors for the Instagram posts, and they had timelines attached to them. And so it became a part where I was like, okay, I'm just going to put out a video. I'll deliver on the creative stuff later, but I want to at least honor the partnership. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. You've probably seen, I've really slowed down on the Instagram stuff because
I have to.
I wasn't seeing the money, and it was starting to become like more of a chore than being a fun outlet.
I agree. For me, that was right around the turn of the year.
Yeah. Right around the time when they took away the Reels bonuses.
Yeah. It just seemed like a lot of stuff shifted. I was already getting just tanked, and nobody was seeing anything. I even had friends that I had their posts marked like to notify me when their reel would go live, and it just wouldn't notify me. I mean, I would see him in the feed and be like, I haven't seen you in a week.
Yeah, that's you and I have talked about that.
Yeah.
Probably around the turn of the year, we were talking about that, and I was surprised to see, based on the content that you do put out, because you put out great content, and that's what I told you. I think back then is like I don't understand why you haven't seen the growth on Instagram. Because
no, I haven't changed followers on Instagram net in about a year plus. It's been just flat.
Right.
No matter what I do. I mean, I'm talking I can post 7 times a week or more, or I can post twice. And it's just kind of the same.
I saw something. Well, there's an advertisement on. I was watching the Astros game before we got on here, and there was an advertisement for TikTok, like don't take TikTok away and stuff like that because it helps my family, my business, and stuff like that. And I heard about them talking about getting rid of TikTok in the U.S. last year. So I wonder if it's more. I wonder if they are trying to push that, and if they do push that, will it force more business on Instagram? Are you on TikTok?
I am. TikTok's done some stuff to change recently too, because very recently, back around the turn of the year, I was doing decent on there as far as getting views. Now I can post whatever and it gets like 200 views and just stops.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that is. I can't keep up with all the different algorithms.
Right. Yeah, and they're changing all the time. I think the one that's been fairly consistent is YouTube. And it feels like they're the adult in the arena, whereas the others are the teenagers just trying to figure out what they want to be when they grow up.
Yeah. They're all chasing each other, and Instagram starts Reels because it's more like TikTok, and then TikTok does long form. I mean, they just keep changing.
So speaking of future plans, what's the plan for your business and kind of going forward? Leaning heavy on the content?
Yeah, I'm trying to push hard on that. Like I said, I feel like I haven't been very consistent with it in the last, I don't know, few months at least. Life just gets in the way, and you get to be doing other stuff, and part of that's just, I don't have some takeoff success where YouTube's paying me thousands of dollars. They're not. It's pretty small.
Yeah.
It's a few $100s here and there.
Right.
And sometimes I just have to go work. That's why sometimes I'll just go work with my friend if I don't have some sales coming in, or I have to go do something else. I mean, I also have to be, like I said, I'm debt averse. So I have to be smart about it. We don't want to have to go borrow money and be in debt just to live. So that's not always the sexy thing to say, that's not the awesome thing. Like, oh yeah, I'm doing this big giant project. Well, it's just not in the budget right now.
Yeah, like the Dave Ramsey principle is, live today. What does he say? Something like,
he says,
live like nobody else.
Yeah, live like no one else, so that then later you can live and give like no one else.
Right.
And I like that.
It's so good. It's true. He's got a lot of great foundational stuff. We tried the Dave Ramsey. We still do it. We still are tackling one major debt at a time, but it's still not. We're not going to be on his show screaming out, we were debt free, like within 2 years or anything like that.
We plan on doing it eventually. We're still really shooting toward, the only thing we owe on is our mortgage, and we're still really shooting toward having that paid off. I want to owe nobody. I don't want to owe anything. And we buckled down when we got married. We got married in 06, and in 07 we were just living in a small apartment just so we could save some money, and we kind of looked at each other and just went, let's just knock out this debt. Actually, right after we got married. And I think it was in late 07 and we paid it all off. We both still had some student loans, and she had a little bit of a car note, and we were like, okay, we're going to pay this off and then just not look back. And we've kept to that. We've borrowed on a mortgage.
Right.
But we've got that paid down quite well now. And when we build, we'll be in a very, very good equity position coming up. Nice.
That does take a lot of the burden and the stress off of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're not worried about failure as much.
Yeah, exactly. People who have launched from a full-time job into this woodworking or maker space, pretty much everybody that I've talked to is like, yep, I was debt free before I did it, which is something I'm striving for before I make that leap.
Yeah, you can do it. I mean, just knock it out. Do what it takes, like you said, and then later you can live how you want to live.
Yeah, got to get rid of that $1,000 car note first.
Oof. That one hurts.
That does hurt.
My mortgage is only $1,000.
That's crazy. I need to move where you are.
Well, I locked in before they all jumped up, and
right.
We only took a mortgage out for like $150 on this house, something like that.
Yeah.
We ended up having pretty good equity.
We didn't want the car note for too long, so it's like, well, let's knock this thing out, and if you're forced to pay a certain amount, you're gonna do it.
Right.
Don't stretch it out for 8 years.
Yeah, I think that's the average now is 8 years.
It's crazy. That's
a long time.
Long time, and you probably trade the car in before you pay it off.
Most people do. I think most people only keep them like 3, a little over 3.
Well, tell you what, let's head over to the after show.
Okay.
And chat a little bit more, and we'll save that for the Patreon members. If you want to be a Patreon member and get access to the after show and get the episodes early, head over to patreon.com/MakerLoungePodcast. And I want to say thank you to our Rockstar patrons, Jimmy McAnally, Wimm Design, Calvary Customs LLC, Cleancut Woodworking, Bailey Thompson, Dave Garcia, Broken Lead Woodworks, Starks Lagoon, Sawyer Design, Kodama Design, Dylan Furniture, Shock the Fox, and Don Patterson. So thank you for being a patron to all of our patrons. And also thank you to Surf Prep for sponsoring this podcast. Amazing folks over at Surf Prep. Use the code MakerLounge, all one word, for 10% off your order. And every time you use that code, it helps me get fund A-listers like Bruce Ulrich. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Let's talk about the podcast a little bit more in the Patreon section.
Okay.
All right.